Good morning, everyone. This is Dr. Amrit from the Department of Pathology. So today I think we are going to start about the kidney diseases. And as we already know that a normal structure of a nephron that we have studied in the histology class or in the normal anatomy class. So we know there is the afferent and the efferent arteriole. Afferent is the one which takes the blood, efferent which takes the blood away from the kidneys, and then we have a glomeruli which is composed of a capillary bed from which all the toxic materials they pass out from the glomeruli into the Bowman's capsule. Now this Bowman's capsule is then continued as PCT, proximal convoluted tubule, then as a distal convoluted tubule, then it ends into collecting ducts. So basically this is the normal histology, but then what is important is to understand the glomerular capillary wall. Now this is composed of a basement membrane, and then it is lined internally by an endothelium, okay, and then it is surrounded outside by visceral epithelial cells which is known as podocytes, and then in between the basement membrane or the capillary wall we have the mesangial cells which proliferate and with collagen and matrix secretion which supports the glomeruli. So this is a picture, not an exact picture, but you can say a broad picture about the afferent, efferent, and how does it look inside with the endothelial cells and the visceral and the parietal cells. But you need to have a look at this picture, which is very, very important. Now you can see the first one is the epithelial cell. This is the visceral epithelial cell outside the capillary loops. Then we have the basement membrane. Then inside the basement, inside the loop, we have the endothelial cell, and then we have the trabeculae and the mesangial cells which is present in between the capillary loops. So this figure is particularly important because in some of the conditions you will see the deposits which are present only in the epithelial cells. Some of the deposits will be seen only in the endothelial cells, and some of the deposits will be seen in the basement membrane, and some in the mesangial cells. So there will be a mixture of deposition in different types of cells. So this is again a clear picture in which the capillary loop, parietal epithelial cell, visceral, food processes, and mesangial cells. And this is what we see under light microscopy. You see the normal cellularity, the loops, the visceral cells which are not very clear, which are outside the capillary loop, and inside we have the endothelial cells, and the cells lining the Bowman's capsule are the parietal epithelial cells. So this is the normal cellularity with all the loops which are patent, which are not thrombosed, or which is which are patent and allows the circulation to move ahead. So today's class is basically on the glomerular diseases and nephritic syndrome, and out of the nephritic syndrome we'll be talking only about the post-streptococcal glomerulonephritis. In the glomerular diseases, how do we define it as? It is the abnormalities of the glomerular function which can be caused by damage to the major components of the glomeruli: epithelial, basement membrane, capillary endothelium, and mesangium. So there is a major abnormality in the function of the kidney because of the damage of the components of the glomeruli. So the damage is manifested by an inflammatory process. So clinical manifestations is in the form of nephritic syndrome. It can be in the form of nephrotic syndrome, or a rapidly progressive glomerulonephritis, chronic renal failure, and isolated urinary abnormalities. So clinically, when you deal with the patient of nephritic, you should be able to differentiate that are we dealing with a patient of nephritic or nephrotic. So in the nephritic you will see more amount of hematuria and azotemia, while in nephrotic you will see more amount of proteinuria, and because of the loss of proteinuria you will see hypoalbuminemia and then hyperlipidemia and lipiduria. What are the main causes which causes all this abnormalities in the lipid and the albumin? We will talk in the next class, because next class is on nephrotic syndrome. But today's class is basically on nephritic syndrome. So we see majority of the time hematuria, azotemia. Azotemia is nothing but the accumulation of BUN or urea. And then proteinuria can be variable, but you get an oliguria. Oliguria is less amount of fluid, less amount of urine which is being produced. Hematuria is presence of blood in the urine, and because of these conditions you will be able to see hypertension in these cases. So rapidly progressive RPGN also presents itself as acute nephritis. Then we have the chronic renal failure, which is persisting for more than 6 months, and it usually results in azotemia. And then we have an isolated urinary abnormalities in which there is a glomerular hematuria and subnephrotic proteinuria. So in these conditions, in nephritic or in the glomerular diseases, what do you see on the microscopy? You see there's a cell proliferation of mesangial cells. Mesangial cells and the endothelial cells, they show the proliferation. Now then there will be infiltration by the leukocytes, which composes of neutrophils if it is acute, and lymphocytes and monocytes if there is a chronic one. Then we have the formation of crescents. Crescents means there's an epithelial cell, the cells which are outside the loops. Epithelial cells, they show proliferation from injury, and this elicits the immunological response in the formation of a crescent, which is nothing but a proliferation of the epithelial cells, and it covers a space between the Bowman's capsule and the capillary loops, forming a complete obstruction of the glomeruli. Then we have the basement membrane thickening. Okay, where is the basement membrane now of the capillary loops. Then we have a hyalinization, which can happen because of the secretion of the fluid or sclerosis. Then eosinophilic and homogeneous obliterates the which can happen in the form of sclerosis. So how do you classify based on histology? You have to see whether the disease which is involving diffuse, it means all the glomeruli. If in one section you have 20 glomeruli, so all the 20 glomeruli is showing the histology. Okay, so diffuse all the glomeruli, and global means the entire glomeruli is not involved. It is more than 80% of the glomeruli is involved. If it is less than 50%, we call it as segmental. Segmental means part of each glomeruli. Okay, but if it is around 80%, more than 80%, we call it as a global. Then focal means portion of the glomeruli, like out of 20, only 5 of them are involved, not all 20. So that is known as focal, portion of the glomeruli. Then segmental is part of each glomeruli, means all the 20 are involved, but only a part, less than 50% is involved. So mesangial is when the depositions are in the mesangial region. Now you know where is mesangium. Let's talk about the pathogenesis. Now what are the causes which causes the glomerular injury? Now it can be of two types. We will go to the slide first. The two types of antibody injuries are injury because of the antigen antibody deposits in the glomeruli, okay, or deposit or the injury which is happening in response to the antibody which is already present inside the glomeruli. Okay, the first one was the antigen antibody reaction has happened outside in the blood, and now those antigen antibody complexes are getting deposited in the kidney. The second one is the antigen is being reactivated and acts against the antibody which is already present inside the glomeruli. The very common example for the second one is the GBM disease or the Goodpasture syndrome. What happened in Goodpasture syndrome? There is a common antibody which is present in the lungs and in the kidneys, which is to which the antigen reacts, and it goes and reacts against that typical antigen inside the glomeruli, and antibody goes and destroys it. So that is the anti-GBM antibody which acts against the antigen, which is common in both the lungs and the kidney, and hence the patient presents, if there is an injury in the lungs, the patient presents it as a hemoptysis, and if it is the kidney, the patient presents as hematuria. Okay, so let's talk about in the above slide what are the different types of in situ immune complex formation and the circulating immune complex formations. In situ means there's a fixed antigen inside the tissue. I have told you before also, like in the second sentence you can see there's a collagen type 4 antigen inside the basement membrane, to which the antibody gets activated and results in glomerular injury. Then in the membranous nephropathy we have the Hayman's antigen, which is very, very important, you have to remember, and this is all genetically, these antigens are present and the antibodies will go and react against them and causes the injury to the kidney. Then we have the circulating immune complexes, in which there is a endogenous antigens like DNA, nuclear proteins or immunoglobulins, or there is some exogenous antigens like the infectious agents and drugs, to which antibodies will react and then they will go and deposit inside the kidneys. Then we have a cytotoxic bodies, cytotoxic antibodies, CD8-4 cytotoxic antibodies, and then we have a cell-mediated immune injury which activates the complement system. Now how do they act? We will see in this diagram first. Yeah. Now you see, if there is an antibody deposition, okay, immune complex is formed, this will result in the activation of the complement. Now if the complement is activated, it will either form a C5a or C5b or 9. C5a will again induce the formation of cytokines and chemokines, but 5-9 forms a membranous action complex which will go and lyse the cells. So that is also the part of cytotoxicity. Now if it is T-cell immune reaction, there is a formation of platelets, macrophages, mesangial cells, T cells and NK cells. So platelets is oxidant cytokines. Macrophages will release proteases and growth factors. Mesangial cells and TK NK cells will secrete NO or the eikonocytes, which helps in the injury of the basement membrane. Now I'll go back to the same slide as above. Now you saw that there is a fixed anti-GBM antibody and there is a Hayman antigen in the membranous glomerulonephritis. So this picture is actually telling you about the deposition. It is in the endothelial, first of all subendothelial, and in this the antigen can either get deposited in the basement membrane or in the subepithelium or either into the subendothelium. So these pictures just show that. Alright, so let's talk about the nephritic syndrome, the primary and the systemic glomerular diseases. The most common cause of nephritic syndrome is post-streptococcal or glomerulonephritis, post-infectious glomerulonephritis, which is again an exam question, which is the most common cause of nephritic syndrome. Then we have the rapidly progressive, the second cause, and then membranous glomerulopathy and minimal change disease, focal segmented. This is more commonly about the nephrotic syndrome. Then membranoproliferative, again both. IgA is again nephritic. Chronic glomerulonephritis is a long-standing condition. Now there are some systemic diseases which also has a damage in the kidney. The first one is SLE, diabetes, amyloidosis, Goodpasture syndrome, microscopic polyarthritis viginus, Henox-Conlin purpura-bacterial endocarditis, and then we have the hereditary disorders, Alport syndrome, thin basement membrane, or Fabry's disease. So these are also important nowadays because many patients are staying undiagnosed because of the multiple reasons. So what do you see in this? We have already discussed there will be a hypercellularity of both the mesangial and the endothelial cells, or if it is epithelial cells, then it will form a crescent. Then there is a basement membrane thickening, hyalinosis and sclerosis. So just a few slides on post-streptococcal glomerulonephritis. This is the most common cause of glomerulonephritis in developing countries. It's most common in 6 to 10 years of age. It occurs 1 to 4 weeks after a lapse of pharyngitis. So group A, beta hemolytic, streptococcal 12, 14 and 1. So these are the organisms which causes a sore throat and pharyngitis and everything, and sometimes these infections they get into the circulation and reaches the kidney, and it also causes the streptococcal glomerulonephritis. So it is basically immunologically mediated. There is antibodies in response to these antigens, and they form an antigen antibody complex which goes and gets deposited in the kidneys. So there is an immune complex deposition, and then there is a injury to the capillary loops or the glomeruli. Now in the circulation, what you will see toxin, antitoxin, which is anti-endoseptocin or other cationic antigens, and serum complement is less. Okay, so on the microscopy in pathology, what you will see is hypercellular glomeruli, you have seen, and plus you will see infiltration of the leukocytes. Why you will see leukocytes? Because of the injury, because of the infection, the leukocytes also come into picture. Then the proliferation of endothelial and mesangial cells, and in the severe cases you will see a crescent formation. Then we have fibrin deposition in the lumen and the mesangium, and the interstitial edema and leukocyte infiltration. Tubules contains the red cell cast. Now in this picture, this is a normal glomeruli. You can see very clearly the loops and the endothelial cells are okay. We can find it out, and then we have the epithelial cells. Now look at this glomeruli. It is hypercellular. You can say that you are not able to even identify the loops. There is so much of proliferation of the endothelial cells. So these are basically endothelial cells which has proliferated, and the mesangial cells are also there in between, but the endothelial cells are very, very prominent. So this is a hypercellularity. Plus there is some deposition of neutrophils, I can say, here and there. I'm sorry, I'm not able to mark it out because of the lack of the cursor, but you can see the neutrophils and the proliferation of the mesangial and endothelial cells. Now if you see the immune complex deposition, it is present in the epithelial, sub-epithelial cells. Okay, we call it as a sub because it is outside behind the capillary loop. Now if you look at the IF, immunofluorescence nowadays is very commonly being used to identify the type of antibody which is present inside those mesangiums. Now if you see, the capillary loops are not highlighted. Okay, they are all black in color, but the loops are highlighted, and you can see they are all deposited in the mesangium. Can you see? It's present outside the loops in between the mesangium. So these are known as granular deposits because they are not uniformly present everywhere. They are present in some portions, not in all the portions. Okay, so this is how we diagnose a case of post-streptococcal glomerulonephritis. And the clinical courses, the patient presents with the malaise. You should know, first of all, it should be hematuria, and then variable proteinuria, and then oliguria, and then hypertension, then elevation of BUN, then RBC CAS, proteinuria, increase in the anti-streptococcal antibody titer, and decrease in C3. This is how we diagnose in the lab. If you are suspecting post-streptococcal glomerulonephritis, we ask the patient to get one anti-streptococcal antibody titer done, depending upon how much is the antibody titer and how much is the injury. And since the complement is being used in the antigen antibody complex, so C3 levels will decrease. So prognosis is a 95% of the patients or the children recover, but literally in the elderly age they may progress to rapidly progressive glomerulonephritis or into chronic glomerulonephritis. But if the patient has a persistent proteinuria, abnormal GFR adults, it usually carries a poor prognosis. So these are the things which we have already discussed. Now it is important to know how do you differentiate between nephrotic and nephritic. I think that also I have told you before. In the nephritic, you will have a high blood pressure, JVP will be raised, proteinuria is less, but hematuria is more because the hematuria, RBC, CAS are more. But in nephrotic syndrome, you will have more of edema, and edema is because of the proteinuria, and then onset is insidious and serum albumin is low. Okay, so we'll talk about the different types of nephrotic syndromes later. In the meantime, I'm here to take up any of the difficulties if you have. I feel like a radio jockey talking to people around which I don't know what I'm doing. So all the best, and get back to me with any of the problems.